bro. And see, it's something I'm thinking. One, two, three. I'm tripping. My
Before
fault.
saying, forgive me, but I have to stop. I did it again.
What nigga act something like that? Like, before we get into the video, like, subscribe. Nah, y'all haven't been hitting that like button. So hit that like button first. And finna be reacting to 5 most disturbing Reddit threads. I wanna see if it's gonna scare me for real. Let's go.
On the 31st of May 2022, members of several crime-related subreddits like Prison, XCon, and Felon saw the same post from an account named Criminology Student. A quick glance at the post revealed that it was asking ex-convicts to take a survey, reading, "Research participation needed. Hello, my name is Brian and I'm inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study..."
See, bro, and see, it's something already finna happen. Dude finna get his head smoked off right there. I ain't even mean
seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience.
What nigga act something like that? Like, who acts something like that?
The event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. This was then followed by a rather professional-sounding disclaimer from the OP, as well as his email and full name, Brian Koberger. Now, requests for surveys like this aren't exactly uncommon on these subreddits, especially from students much like Brian. But the questions in this one are a bit strange, asking things like, how did you travel to and enter the location that the crime occurred? Before making your move, how did you approach
This nigga trying to take tips.
The victim or target? Before leaving, is there anything else you did? How did you leave the scene? However, the DeSales University email ID and the fact that the survey was hosted on an official-looking website suppressed any suspicion people might have had about its legitimacy. It's unclear how many people actually completed the survey, but Brian must have had some luck because he reposted the same request on many other subreddits over the next month. What none of the participants knew, however, was that this survey would end up becoming evidence for one of the worst crimes in Idaho's history. The police first became aware of the situation on November 13th, 2022 at around noon after receiving a disturbing 911 call traced to Moscow, Idaho.
911 location of your emergency.
You live in Idaho, put it in chat.
Something happened in our house. We don't know what. What is the address of the emergency?
Blue lights, don't play that. I'm scared.
The caller was sobbing so hard she could barely explain what was happening. Then another girl grabbed the phone from her and told the dispatcher that her roommate was unconscious and not breathing. Officers rushed to the scene, expecting the worst outcome. However, nothing could have prepared them for the brutally gruesome scene they were about to walk into. The house, located on Kings Road, was the off-campus residence of several University of Idaho students. And upon arrival, the officers saw bloody remains of 4 of these students.
I've seen something like this already. I've seen this, but I ain't heard the full story. I don't want to, like, spoil it, but the teacher tried to knock off every single one of them, but only 2 of them survived, I think.
Scattered throughout the house. All 4 of them had numerous lacerations and stab wounds, and had tragically already passed away by the time help arrived. According to later autopsy reports, the 4 were attacked by likely the same person at around 4 a.m. One of the surviving roommates, who later called 911, remembered seeing a masked stranger roaming around the house around that time, but she was too intoxicated to trust her own vision and passed out shortly after locking her bedroom door. Crime scene investigators arrived at the scene shortly after the police and began looking for clues. Unfortunately, the only thing they found in the house was the leather sheath of a knife under one of the victims. This finding would prove extremely important later, but at the time it did little to help investigators identify the killer. The DNA present on it, for example, wasn't in the FBI's database. Though what made the case even harder to solve was the complete lack of motive. Nothing was missing from the house, and there were no signs the perpetrator had done anything other than commit the murders. With no other option, investigators began analyzing CCTV footage from around the region. And that's when they discovered a white Hyundai Elantra speeding away from the area.
Dang, nigga, that car about bright as I don't know what. That jump brighter than the nigga future.
Shortly after the estimated time of the crime. Further analysis revealed that the same car had been circling the victim's house hours before the incident. Tracking this vehicle led to 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger, the same Brian Koberger who had posted this survey on Reddit months earlier. He had a master's in criminal justice and was pursuing a PhD at Washington State University. That said, he had no real connections with the victims. His presence in the general vicinity of the incident wasn't strong enough evidence to issue an arrest warrant either. So the investigators looked deeper, and using his phone data confirmed that he'd visited the house many times in the past. He also turned his phone off for several hours around the same time as the incident, something he had never done in years. He likely thought that keeping his phone off would prevent law enforcement from tracking his location. But this sudden break-in pattern stood out even more, giving authorities the go-ahead to arrest Brian. However, tracking him down turned out to be far more difficult than investigators.
Kill somebody will always be caught. Well, I don't know that. Probably not. Don't come after me for saying that. But it might is. If you ain't smart enough, it's gonna come back to you.
Skaters had anticipated. By the time they caught on to him, he was long gone from his university. And after a weeks-long manhunt, Brian was finally located and subsequently arrested on December 30, 2022. He was found hiding in his parents' home in Pennsylvania, over 2,500 miles away from the crime scene. DNA samples taken after the arrest also matched the sample found on the knife sheath perfectly, further confirming that Brian was the one investigators were looking for. And while he kept denying the allegations at first, he eventually confessed to everything in exchange for a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He stood trial on July 23, 2025, and was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. His conviction also put his Reddit survey requests in a much different light. Brian was trying to learn how other criminals carried out their crimes and the mistakes that got them caught so the same didn't happen to him. Though, one thing that's been completely missing from any of these findings is his motive. Why would a seemingly well-adjusted man on path to a doctorate degree commit such a heinous crime, especially when he didn't even know his victims beforehand? While the most popular theory states that his actions were the result.
That was a heavy first story, my nigga. I ain't gonna lie, that was crazy. I ain't gonna lie. That gave me a little chill. Let's make chills. I ain't gonna lie. Let's get to the next one. Dang, nigga.
Extremely disturbing threads, but as of recent, it's also been a place I've been finding some pretty unsettling medical stories. For example, I recently saw an innocent-looking post in r/mildly interesting where a woman woke up with different sized pupils. Turns out this is really serious, and she ended up getting hundreds of urgent comments telling her to see a doctor immediately. Now, I personally have had situations like this, less serious of course, like a random shooting pain in my chest or my heart racing for no reason. But most of the time this happens at like midnight, when every doctor's office is closed anyway. That is where today's video sponsor ZocDoc comes in. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality, in-network voicemail OP received.
What's next? What's next? What's next?
You should always judge pizza by the sauce, the dough, and the cheese, not by the toppings on it. Also, when ordering pizza, especially for delivery
Yeah, gang, he killed somebody. I could tell. This nigga just yapping.
or pickup, it is not a bad idea to order it well done, as most places have a tendency to undercook it, especially when they're busy, like on a Friday night. Now that is, of course, unless you like it lightly cooked. Now I have no interest at all in watching the Kardashians, and I never have, nor will I ever wear a backpack. And I hope this is clear to you.
The whole thing sounded like nothing but incoherent rambling on a first listen. It started with a somewhat understandable point about judging pizza from its sauce, dough, and cheese, since those are the core components of pizza. But then the advice about ordering a well-done pizza made no sense, as pizza being delivered undercooked isn't really an option. Though, the most bizarre sections of the voicemail came from after the pizza rant, where the topic suddenly jumped to watching the Kardashians, and even more strangely, wearing backpacks. How this all connected to each other was unclear, and even if it did make sense, what
I hope he ain't. I just hope right now he ain't blow the whole pizza place up, my nigga. I ain't gonna lie. It's way too.
Any of it had to do with the OP was an even bigger mystery. Not to mention the fact that this sender dialed *67.
We leaking numbers. 1, 2, 3. I'm tripping. My
Before
fault.
even wake up in the middle of the night and have full-blown conversations with nobody. But while that all is a possibility, it doesn't seem very likely. Mainly because
Bro, scared out ever living out of me. You got an old nigga. He's talking to
Because there are no pauses or stumbles between the different thoughts. It's as if the caller had rehearsed the message beforehand, or maybe even written it between the different thoughts.
Hold on,
It's as if the caller had rehearsed.
Yeah, nigga, I saw that. You thought I didn't see that Fortnite, nigga? Yo, this is old. This is old footage. This nigga got all the apps on here. IGTV. Yo.
The message beforehand, or maybe even written it down before calling. Of course, this could just be a troll message with no real purpose other than to spook the OP. However, a more plausible theory gives this otherwise strange-sounding voicemail a much more sinister meaning. And it all stems from the Pizzagate controversy from back in 2016, where Democrat-led establishments, namely the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria in Washington, D.C., were accused of being fronts for illegal trafficking rings. At the time, several official sources, including the Washington Police, New York Times, and the Washington Post, ensured that this was nothing more than a conspiracy with zero proof to back its claims. For instance, the accusations claimed the restaurant had a basement where underage victims were kept before being sold off. But when inspected, the building turned out to have no basement at all, let alone one big enough to facilitate a large-scale criminal operation. However, the sheer popularity of this controversy could have led to an actual uptick in using pizza-related terms as code for actual trafficking operations. So, as the theory goes, the message OP received was encoded with similar intentions and was meant for someone else. Especially with the addition of, "I hope this is clear to you" at the end, which implies a deeper meaning to those words. As one user put it, "It's some kind of coded message for a person who most definitely was not meant to be you." The "I hope this is clear to you" line account user SwiftJustice25 shared about their encounter with a creepy man in a foreign country. The comment read, "This post is very long, but I couldn't tell the whole story very well without it being this long. When I was a missionary in Brazil, my companion and I were approached by a seemingly homeless man who greeted us in almost perfect English."
Hey, I went around. It was around, but not this advanced, my nigga. You really typed all of this.
Turns out he was an American who had been living in Brazil for about 30 years. His name was Bickford. He had to have been in his late 50s to 60s. It was hard to tell because of his big beard and very unkempt appearance. He feigns interest in what we were peddling and asks for a copy of the Book of Mormon, but is clearly more excited to be speaking English with two Americans. We meet up with him a few times to discuss religion, but he would always meet us at the side of the road or some other public but still secluded place. We had to give weekly reports to the ecclesiastical leaders for the local unit about who we were meeting and teaching. After meeting Bickford a few times, we bring him up in our weekly meeting. The bishop and his other leaders instantly know who we are talking about and caution us to stay away from this guy. Apparently, he's a bit unstable, and once or twice a year will start bothering the missionaries. My companion and I can't believe the bishop is referring to the same person, and we continue meeting with him. I don't know how to adequately describe the creepiness of this guy. Between his disheveled appearance, flat-out lying to us, and other small signs, he had a certain sinister vibe. But with nothing concrete to put our finger on, we continued to speak to him. Occasionally, he would run into us outside of the house we lived in. In one of these encounters, he invited them to his house in the jungle, all while talking about how nice and wonderful it was there. The OP and his partner reluctantly agreed and showed up at the road closest to the house. Bickford arrived a bit late.
I don't think people back then had that. I wouldn't even do that at this right now.
And then told them to follow him into the jungle through waist-high foliage and insects. However, what they witnessed on the other side of the trail was beyond disturbing. As the OP described it, "When we finally arrived at his house, my companion and I played it cool, but we couldn't believe what we were seeing. He had led us to a small clearing where there was a wooden cabin that had half collapsed on itself. He said welcome home and let us inside. There was no electricity, no running water, no utilities whatsoever. We walked in the front door frame, no door, and saw that all furniture in the house had been destroyed. Literally, someone had concentrated a large amount of effort and time to achieve this level of destruction. Chairs were unrecognizable, and there was trash everywhere." He begins showing us the main room inside the front door. That's when I noticed them. Notes, in chalk, on every square inch of the wooden walls, up the walls, on the ceiling, and a tiny frenzied scrawl. When I trained my light on the notes and started to read them, most of the notes were variations on Jesus will forgive me, but I have to stop. I did it again. These with the month and date written next to them. And then the piece de resistance, the names of several children with their ages and graphic detail about them. We tried so hard not to mention the
Bro,
note.
I ain't gonna lie. What this nigga's saying right now is not even scary games, just the screen, bro. I ain't gonna lie, I don't know what I'm watching.
Tried so hard to ask him small
I think
talk
some
questions
niggas
about the
wild.
rotting food on the stove or the 100 or so rats he kept in his basement, anything but mentioning the notes. I can't speak for my companion, but I was freaking out. From glances at each other, I could see that he was at DEF CON 1 as well, and we decided to get out of there. We made some excuse as it was getting late that we needed to get home, and he reluctantly offered to show us the way back, on the condition that we would come visit again. As we get out of the house, he suddenly remembers that he knows a shortcut and tells us to follow him. The direction he was trying to lead us is clearly not the way back to the road. It only led deeper into the jungle. We politely declined, and luckily we were able to follow the trail that we had originally made through the underbrush. This time, however, I did not care about the spiders. When we got back onto the road and realized we were safe, we looked at each other as if to say, did that really happen? Once we started talking about what we just saw, I was so terrified that I physically could not speak. Nothing like that had ever happened to me nor since. I absolutely could not make a sound, I was so scared. My companion called our leaders who called their leaders, and we ended up moving about a week later. But not before making an entry in our area book, the book that stays in the area listing who had been talked to and who to contact in the area, warning all other missionaries to stay away from this guy. Now, this reads almost like the plot of a short horror film. The story of a deranged, possible serial killer
That nigga just dodged death.
living in the jungles of Brazil sounds almost too fictitious to be true. And the OP was quite aware of this as well, which is where the most important part of his story comes in, the recordings. As it turned out, OP, fearing for his own safety, secretly recorded many of his conversations with Bigford and posted the link to a compilation with his comment. For example, Bigford talking about the rats he raises.
You know, when I call like this, they come back.
Oh, here they are, the rats.
Yes. 125. You can catch him and
Nigga, how you know how much rats is in there, bro?
say hello.
Niggas
This
is
is a
making
female.
friends with a minute.
Should it, do you not put the collars on all of them, or?
No, not in the old ones.
Hmm.
These are the first. These I even leave the tails on.
Normally you clip them off.
Yes.
Drugs, nothing more than prenatal vitamins, not even Tylenol, and I already proved that by passing a drug test. I'm scared and confused. Do I need a lawyer? I have anticipated spending our savings on our new daughter/parental leave, but I will use that money for a lawyer if I have to. This was a tragic situation all around. The fear of losing their first child just minutes after birth is overwhelming enough. Not to mention the physical stress OP must have been under, which could have negatively affected her and by extension her baby's health. Most people who came across this post sympathized with the OP and tried to help the best they could. Some suggested continuing to cooperate with the authorities, while others told the OP to lawyer up as soon as they could. But for a large number of people, something about the whole situation just didn't sit right. I am a former Indiana CPS investigator/assessor. Something here is not making any sense at all, unless the law has changed greatly in the last few years when I left the department. As of this moment, you are pregnant, correct? You don't have any children. They're investigating the fetus? Former CPS worker here too. Agree with you. CPS does not investigate pregnant women with no current children. Something is not right. They urged the OP to take a closer look at the investigation, maybe even call CPS and DCS directly and inquire about the ongoing investigation. Even then, none of these commenters could have expected just how correct they would be. The truth came out on February 22nd when the OP returned with a very important update, stating, I contacted and met with a lawyer and explained the situation to him. He seemed to agree that something was very fishy. To make a long story short, the woman handling our case has no affiliation with DCS. I'm still in complete shock. We went straight to the police. They're taking this very seriously. I can't give a lot of details because it's an ongoing investigation, but she seems to have been a very skilled/well-researched liar. I never would have known anything was amiss without the advice of this subreddit and the intervention of my attorney. I feel like a complete idiot, but the instinct to cooperate unquestioningly when
One number thing right now for me, I'm standing off Reddit.
faced with an intimidating authority figure is strong. I haven't had the baby yet. A 44-year-old woman named Lisa Nakrelli was arrested in June 2023 for impersonating.
Before we end this video, like, subscribe, and go follow the socials. Should be like right here. Go follow the socials. And I really don't know, bro. I just spent 30 minutes watching this video and I'm a little scared right now. So I'm finna go upload this. Not today, but tomorrow. After it's gonna be uploaded before I get out of school. But like, subscribe, 9/11, and bye.